Hello, family. Hey, y'all. Hello. All right, this week we are in Genesis chapter 29, and I'm so excited because I think we're getting, the whole Bible is good, but I really do love the the chapters that we're getting into now. Genesis 29 and on, like, it's so good. So I'm going to give give people a few more minutes to come on in. I hope everyone has had a good day or a good week so far. So I'm really excited. Hey, love, you mean it? I got my glasses on. I hope I'm seeing it right. Okay, let me find my chapter, y'all. Genesis chapter 29. And hopefully we won't be on here too long tonight. Y'all, my Bible is falling apart. It is falling apart. I got a new one, but I made a mistake and bought the small print instead of the large print. And so, yeah. Hey, Shay, Makia. Hey, Yvonetta White. Yvonetta White, yes. Hey. All right. Where my YouTube people at? Come on now. So if you're new here, I do Bible study every week on YouTube and TikTok at 6 p.m. This week we're on Genesis chapter 29. If you want to go back and listen to all the Bible studies starting from Genesis 1, they're on my they're uploaded on my YouTube channel. So, yeah. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started, y'all. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're in Genesis chapter 29 today, and I love I love the Bible, period. I say this every week, but I love the Bible, period. I love just about everything I've read. Now, even though I don't know. Oh. All right, Genesis chapter 29. So we're not going to go through the entire chapter of Genesis. We're only going to go through like some of the highlights, some of the things. And if you guys have any questions, you can just drop them in the chat. Oh, thank you. And so, also, I forgot my train of thought, y'all. Anyways, let's get to it. Let's get into it, y'all. So, Genesis chapter 29. It says, I'm just going to go through the first couple of verses just so we can kind of get acquainted with the chapter. If you haven't been here, I may say some things that you may be lost. Like I said, you can go and watch the full Bible studies on my YouTube channel. It's Sonia Taylor 585. I'm sorry, y'all. What's distracting me is I keep getting text messages. And I don't know how I should have turned my notifications off before I got on here. Hey, Vivi. Thank you for joining. All right. So I will just say this. I have a video on my YouTube and it's titled, If He Wanted to, He Would. So in that video, I'm referencing some parts of Genesis chapter 29. It's very good. So if you get a chance, if you're on YouTube, go back and listen to that video because I took that video lesson from Genesis chapter 29. And so we're going to get into that. I'm going to discuss the same thing tonight in Bible study. So let's just get into it, y'all. So then Jacob hurried on. Finally arriving in the land of the east, he saw a well in the distance. 3 flocks of sheep and goats lay in an open field beside it, waiting to be watered, but a heavy stone covered the mouth of the well. It was custom there to wait for all the flocks to arrive before removing the stone and watering the animals. Afterward, the stone would be placed over the mouth of the well. Jacob went over to the shepherds and asked, "Where are you from, my friends?" We are from Haran," they answered. "Do you know a man there named Laban, the grandson of Nahor?" he asked. So there are a few names that, hey y'all, hey Lisa Pruitt, hey Taylor Sanders. There are a few names here that I want you all to I want to reference and talk about before we move any further, just so you know kind of what's going on. Haran is the place where Abraham's father, they settled there. And then Laban is Abraham's nephew. Nahor was Abraham's brother. So are y'all I want you all to kind of follow along, because it's very important, because when I mention some other things in here, thank you so much. When I mention some other things, it might confuse you. And so I remember telling y'all, please make sure that you keep these names in the back of your head, because a lot of times as we're studying the Bible, we don't understand like why these people, how we can relate to them. And so the Bible, I always say that the Bible is very relatable. And so if the Bible is mentioning something, it's for a reason. Like these things are put in here strategically. And so a lot of the things that you may think that are not important are really important. And so I want you all to keep those names in the back of your head, because we're going to go back. It's not that I am going to go back just so you all can like kind of know what I'm talking about and understand what I'm talking about. Otherwise, you will be confused and you're going to be like, okay, I don't understand this and what it got to do with me. It has everything to do with us. It has everything to do with us. So, again, Haran. Yes, stay for a little while. So again, Haran was the place that they left when they left the Ur of Chaldeans. That's where Abraham was from. They settled in Haran, and then they were supposed to go from Haran to Canaan. Canaan is the promised land. So I hope y'all are getting this. So Laban is the son of Nahor, who was Abraham's brother. And so now that we got that out the way, I want to refer back to Genesis chapter 24. Did I see Maisha? Are you in here? Now, I remember telling y'all to remember Laban. So in Genesis chapter 24, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a backstory. Abraham sent his servant to look for his son Isaac a wife. He sent his servant to look for Isaac a wife. So when he went to look for her, and Isaac's wife her name is Rebecca. That's going to be Laban's sister. So when Abraham went to send his servant to go find his son a wife, Laban was there, and Laban was just kind of checking out the servant because he gave Rebecca a ring, some gold bracelets. He knew that they were wealthy. He knew that they were wealthy, and he was watching the wealth, y'all. He was pocket watching, y'all. He was pocket watching. Now, if you've never been to my Bible study before, it's gonna be a little different, probably from other Bible studies. But yes, he was pocket watching, y'all. He was pocket watching, and he saw all the gifts that Abraham's servant brought to give to Rebekah. So I need y'all to keep that in your mind. Keep that in your mind. Also, another thing that I need you to keep in your mind is that Jacob deceived his brother Esau. Jacob deceived his brother Esau. And you might be wondering, okay, well, why is that important? We're going to talk about that right here. You're going to see why it's important. Because a lot of times people think that they can do stuff to people and they can get away with it. But here in the Bible, you can see it's always this thing called karma. It's going to always come back on you. So a lot of times we may be thinking we're getting away with stuff, and no, we're not. You're not gonna get away with nothing. So they call him a deceiver for a reason. But I want you to see what Laban says. Remember, I told y'all to remember Laban. And so it says, we stopped at the part where he asked about where they were from. Then he said, do you know a man there named Laban, the grandson of Nahor? Okay, he was the grandson of Nahor. I got that wrong, y'all. He asked. Yes, we do, they replied. Is he doing well? Jacob asked. Yes, he's well, they answered. Look, here he comes, his daughter Rachel with the flock now. So Jacob sees Rachel. This is kind of almost the same scenario as in Genesis chapter 24. If you all go back and study it, it's the same scenario as when Abraham sent his servant to look for Isaac a wife. It's kind of almost the same thing. He sent him back to where he was from to look for him a wife. And we talked about why. Abraham didn't want his son to marry a Canaanite woman, and we'll see Jacob is not going to marry a Canaanite woman either. They kept it in the family. And that's another story for another day, y'all. Another story for another day. And so he says, Jacob said, look, it's still broad daylight. It's too early to round up the animals. Why don't you water the sheep and goats so that they can get back out to pasture? And so the shepherds tell them, no, we can't water the animals right now. And then it says, Jacob was still talking with them when Rachel arrived with her father's flock, for she was a shepherd. I noticed that. Why do you think the Bible tells us that she's a shepherd? Remember the Bible talks about the Lord is my shepherd. Psalms 23, the Lord is my shepherd. A shepherd guides. A shepherd guides sheep. But it's not really, when it's referencing her as a shepherd, I think it's a reference kind of to the Lord. And that's good because all throughout the Bible, it talks about shepherds. Moses was a shepherd. There are a lot of people that were shepherds. But I noticed that. And then it says, Jacob was still talking with them. Oh, no, I just read that. Oh, it says, and because Rachel was his cousin, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and because the sheep and goats belonged to his uncle Laban, Jacob went over to the well and moved the stone from its mouth and watered his uncle's flock. And it says, then Jacob kissed Rachel and he wept aloud. And so when I read that, I was like, he wept, which means wept means he cried. And so when you see it sometimes in the Bible, biblically, wept means like it's a strong emotion coming from the heart. So he was just kind of overwhelmed. He had a genuine liking to her. And to me, when I read this, I think about love at first sight. Like he loved her when he first saw her. And I don't know, do y'all believe in love at first sight? Y'all let me know in the chat. Do y'all believe in love at first sight? That's kind of what happened here. And so it says, he explained to Rachel that he was her cousin on her father's side, the son of her aunt Rebecca. So Rachel quickly ran and told her father Laban. As soon as Laban heard that his nephew Jacob had arrived, he ran out to meet him. And this is where the story gets interesting, y'all. You said you used to, Maisha, but you don't anymore. Don't feel that way. Sometimes it still can be. It still can. You just never know. It says he embraced and kissed him and brought him home. When Jacob had told, this is the part, y'all. Okay, all right. You have a good rest of your evening, Taylor Sanders. And so, this is what he says in verse 14, y'all. This is so good. He says in verse 14, Laban exclaimed, "You really are my own." He embraced him and kissed him. Before we get to 14, y'all, he embraced him and kissed him and brought him home. When Jacob had told his story, remember, he told his story of what happened, how he did his brother. Laban exclaimed, "You really are my own flesh and blood." And so every time I read that, I kind of get tickled, y'all, because I feel like he was just wrote. You know how people be thinking, mischievous people, like, you really are my flesh and blood. Because Jacob told him what he had did to his brother, how he stole his birthright and his blessing. He stole it. And remember, I don't know if you all remember when we talked about names. Jacob's name means to deceive. It means deceiver. And Laban is saying to him, oh, after he told him the story, "Oh, you really are my flesh and blood." Because he's saying, you just like me. I deceive people too. And we about to read about the deception, y'all. We about to get into the deception. So he telling me, oh yeah, you deceive people. You lie just like I lie. We flesh and blood. And so the next part of this is Jacob marries Leah and Rachel. So after Jacob had stayed with Laban for about a month, Laban said to him, "You shouldn't work for me without pay just because we are relatives. Tell me how much your wages should be." And so it says, now Laban had 2 daughters. The older daughter was named Leah, and the younger one was Rachel. Don't miss this, y'all. Don't miss this, because this is so good. Y'all, it says, there was no sparkle in Leah's eyes, but Rachel had a beautiful figure and a lovely face. So I feel like low-key, they was trying to tell us that Leah wasn't all that cute. Because why else say she had no sparkle in her eyes? I was like, oh, okay. And then it says, but Rachel had a beautiful figure and a lovely face. Your pastor said the same thing, Maisha. I said, oh, this is interesting. And it gets interesting as you read further. And so I highlighted that too. I highlighted it on my iPad. I didn't highlight it in my Bible. And then it says, since Jacob was in love with Rachel, he told her father, "I'll work for you for 7 years if you'll give me Rachel, your youngest daughter, as my wife." Okay, this is important, y'all, because this is where the deception comes in. And so he said, "I'll work for you for 7 years." I want to pause right there. I want to pause right there because this man was willing to work 7 years for somebody that he loved. Hence, if he wanted to, he would. He would, y'all. Remember, he had just met her, but he was willing to work for her for 7 years. 7 years, y'all. And he agreed to work 7 years, but he ended up working more. We're going to get into that, though. And here's the thing. Her father agreed. They agreed to him marrying Rachel. And so it says, Jacob worked 7 years to pay for Rachel, but his love for her was so strong that it seemed to him but a few days. And then it says, finally the time came for him to marry her. I have fulfilled my agreement, Jacob said to Laban. Now give me my wife so I can sleep with her. So Laban invited everyone in the neighborhood and prepared a wedding feast. I want y'all to remember that part about the wedding feast. But that night, when it was dark, Laban took Leah to Jacob and he slept with her. Laban had given Leah a servant, Zilpah, to be her maid. But when Jacob woke up in the morning, it was Leah. What have you done to me? He tricked him, y'all. He deceived him. Well, the Bible mentions her beauty. He didn't. I think the person who wrote it mentioned her beauty. And yes. And so that's one of the things that's kind of up in the air, who wrote Genesis. Some people say it was Moses. It's not quite clear on who actually wrote it. And which that can play into when you're studying the Bible. Sometimes it's kind of important to know like who wrote it and what genre you're in the context, so you can understand it and not be confused by things. So yeah. But I want y'all to think about this. He went to bed that night and slept with her. He know he was sleeping with Rachel. You trying to tell me you didn't know? So I said to myself, I said he had to be tipsy or something to not know who he slept with. Remember, it says they had a wedding feast. And when they celebrated in the Bible, and remember the first miracle that Jesus did was was at a wedding where he turned water into wine. So I'm thinking he had been drinking, and he had to be drinking mighty heavily not to know that it wasn't Rachel. That's what I'm just thinking to myself, because how you not know? You married and you didn't know who you slept with. That's what I'm saying. I read between the lines there. I said, wait a minute. I said, oh, a wedding feast. Because here's the thing about the people in the Bible, and most people don't talk about, these people celebrated. They celebrated everything. They had a festival and a feast for everything. If you go to the book of Job, you will see that Job and his family, his children, they had feasts every week. And they would invite each other all over to each other's houses. And you trying to tell me these people weren't drinking wine? They were drinking and having a good time. And think about this. They was drinking so much at the wedding. And I do want to say this though. Back in those times, they don't do like how we do, where we just celebrate for one day. They celebrated for for a few days. So think about it. If you celebrating something for a few days, you're gonna run out of something. Hence, they ran out of wine, and Jesus made turn the water into wine. So they're celebrating a wedding. There was some drinking going on. They was having a mighty good time. So good of a time that he didn't even know who got in his bed. He didn't know if it was Rachel or Leah. The Bible clearly says he woke up that morning. And you can't make the story into something that it's not. It's telling us right here he woke up that morning and he had been tricked though. But how you get tricked? Because if you had been sober, you probably would have known. I'm sure. Like, it couldn't have been that dark that you didn't know what you was doing. I'm just saying, y'all. I'm just saying. And so the first thing out his mouth was, "What have you done to me?" Jacob raged at Laban. "I worked 7 years for Rachel. Why have you tricked me?" And I'm just going to read to y'all what it says in my Bible because I love what it says. And if y'all don't have a good study Bible, get you one. I love this one right here because I'm telling you, sometimes this even in the commentary, the description, it be gathering me together sometimes. But it says he was enraged. So that's verse 25. It says, Jacob was enraged when he learned that Laban had tricked him. The deceiver had now been deceived himself. And it says, how natural is it for us to become upset at an injustice done to us while closing our eyes to the injustices that we do to others? And then it says, sin has a way of coming back to haunt us. So basically, in this little passage here is letting us know that, yes, thank you, Maisha, that when you do stuff to other people, because a lot of times when we do stuff to other people, we don't think it's going to come back on us. But some way, somehow, it does. It does. And I'm telling y'all that from experience. I'm telling y'all that from experience. It comes back on you. It comes back on you. It will come back on you. So just be careful what you do to people. Oh, Lewis, Jacob, Matthew, John, how did those names come about over 200 years ago in the Middle East? I'm not sure. I mean, from what I read in the Bible, it just tells me that that's what they were named. And a lot of times God they were told by God what to name them, name their kids. And then also they named their kids, which I was just about to talk about. They named, I don't know if you all knew this, that they named their kids based on the situation that they were going through. Or that's how some of them got some of their names. Like Jacob means to deceive. And I know with John, God told his father to name him that. Matthew, I'm not sure. But a lot of times people were named based on the situation they were in, if that makes sense, from what I've read in my Bible. And so so this is what Laban says to Jacob why he deceived him. He said, "It's not our custom here to marry off a younger daughter ahead of the firstborn," Laban replied. Now, why didn't he tell him that when he made the deal with him, though? He could have told him that when he said, "Hey, I want to marry your daughter. I'll work for you for 7 years so I can marry your daughter, Rachel." Why didn't he tell her then? I can't let you marry her first because she's the youngest, and it's not customary for us to marry the youngest daughter off first. The older daughter has to be married first. Why didn't he tell him that? You know why? Because he was a slickster. a slickster, and he was trying to get him more labor out of him, trick him out of more labor. He knew how he felt about his daughter, and that's exactly what happened. And so it says, he says, but wait until the bridal week is over, then we'll give you Rachel too, provided you promise to work another 7 years for me. So he worked a total of 14 years, y'all. Yes, he worked a total of 14 years so that he could marry Rachel. He could have said, I ain't doing that. But he worked for the woman that he loved and that he wanted to be with. He wanted that lady bad. He wanted her bad. Because, I mean, meanwhile, some people can't even get a text back. This man working 14 years, and it's people that won't even text you back. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I thought that was funny. And so he agreed to it. It says, so Jacob agreed to work 7 more years. A week after Jacob had married Leah, Laban gave him Rachel too. Laban gave Rachel a servant, Bilhah, to be her maid. And I think they reference those maids because they eventually I see you, Maisha. I know that's right. He well, we'll get into that a little bit later. It just says, so Jacob slept with Rachel too, and he loved her much more than Leah. He then stayed and worked for Laban the additional 7 years. And then it talks about his many children. And then this is how God, I know, I was like, we be thinking God don't be caring about us and how we get treated, but yes, he do. It says, when the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he enabled her to have children, but Rachel could not conceive. And so I see a pattern in the Bible where there were women who were barren. Oh, you back? Okay. There's a pattern of women being barren. And when I say barren, they weren't able to have children. It was Abraham's wife. Also, Isaac's wife was barren as well. It took her 20 years to have Esau and Jacob. And then as we study on further, you'll see that Samuel's mom was barren as well. I forget what her name was, Hannah. I think it was Hannah. But yeah. But there's a pattern of women being barren, not being able to give birth. But what does God do? All of these women eventually had children, which means that, and that is a metaphor. Like, it may seem impossible for you to birth something. It could mean literally and it could mean metaphorically as well. So has God given you something to birth? Birthing a business, birthing a ministry, birthing whatever it is. And also birthing an actual baby. That too. So just keep in mind, when we're studying the Bible, we read it literally, but we also understand it metaphorically. So I hope that makes sense. And so it says, so Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, the Lord has noticed my misery, and now my husband will love me. And so what we see is a woman having children, thinking that the children will make the man love her. But he doesn't. She ended up having 4 kids. And when she had the fourth one, she finally said, because I'm not going to read all the rest. She finally said, she said, it says, once again, this is the very last verse. Once again, Leah became pregnant. This is the fourth time now, y'all. To another son. She named him Judah, for she said, now I will praise the Lord. And then she stopped having children. She said, enough is enough. It don't look like it don't matter how many kids I have by this man. He's still not gonna love me. Having his children is not gonna make him love me. And you got some people out there that are having kids thinking that that's gonna keep the man around and make him love you, and that's just not the case at all. So yeah, and I thought this was so sad. Reading this about her, I was like, man, she had all these kids, and this man still never had the love for her that she wanted him to have. And I also don't forget to, as you're studying the Bible, a lot of the things that we read, we forget that these are people, they're real people, and they lived in a culture where, you know, their marriages were arranged. Now, Leah didn't ask to be married to Jacob. She was just given to him. She didn't ask. She didn't ask for this situation. And that's the sad part. He wanted to marry Rachel. That's who he wanted. But the dad, being who he is, and I just thought of like, dang, he didn't even like, do you wanna be married to Jacob? You let her marry somebody knowing he didn't love her, your daughter. But that's what they did culturally back in that time. And so I guess it didn't matter, you know. But I mean, clearly Jacob loved Rachel, and it tells us that he did. But yeah, I was just kind of sad for her. Oh, somebody was just asking about the names, and so it says here, it says today's parents usually give their children names that sound good or have family connections, but the Old Testament portrays a more dynamic use of names. Parents often chose names that reflected the situation at the time of birth. And so every time Leah had a child, she named that child what she was feeling. The first one was named Reuben, and she said, the Lord noticed my misery, and now my husband will love me. And then it says she soon became pregnant again and gave birth to another son. She named, I'm gonna say Simeon, for she said, the Lord heard that I was unloved and has given me another son. So she's naming the children after how she was feeling. And then it says, then she became pregnant a third time and gave birth to another son. He was named Levi, for she said, surely this time my husband will feel affection for me, since I have given him 3 sons. But he didn't. And by the 4th time, she hadn't got her whole mind together, and she was like, forget this. The only man that I'm concerned about loving me is the Lord. And she said, once again, Leah became pregnant and gave birth to another son. She named him Judah. Judah means praise, y'all. For she said, now I will praise the Lord. And then she stopped having children. She came to her senses. And that's pretty much it, y'all. This is so good. But the key points in this was that I thought that I came up from this is the one thing is not when you do things to people, it comes back on you. He deceived, so he got deceived. And that should be a lesson. I know so many people that think that they gonna get away with stuff. We don't get away. And here's the thing, y'all. When we're reading the Bible, just remember, like, we're picking out, like, it's not written to us, it's written for us. So everything is not necessarily gonna be something that we can apply, but it can definitely be something that we can learn from. So I talk about the word prescriptive and descriptive. So this is something that is descriptive, like it's describing, the Bible is describing to us what has happened. And so from this, we pick out the principles, like, okay, Jacob did this. Either, no, I don't want to do that, because if I do that, then this is how it's going to end for me. And so I know that a lot of people, there's some people who read it and think, oh, this is something that I'm supposed to do. Not necessarily, because the Bible has a lot of different topics in it. It covers a lot of different topics. And so you need to know the difference between what's prescribed for you to do and what's descriptive. It's describing what these people did. And sometimes you have to be like, okay, that's something that I shouldn't do because that didn't work out for that person. Okay, they did this, they prayed this way, or they did this, then okay, that worked out, then that's something that I should do. So just think about that as you are studying the Bible. Everything is not for us. And also, I mentioned it last week as well. Some things can be, may seem like it's confusing to you, or you may think it's contradictory. Confusion just means that you just need to read and study a little bit more. The Bible does not contradict itself. It just means that your understanding of, maybe you may not have the full understanding. And one thing that I have learned with God is that he doesn't reveal everything to us all at once. He gives us a little bit at a time. Like, I remember in the beginning, like, I knew nothing. And I just, even when I would go in my closet and I would study, there would just be things. So it's like, oh, I would read. I was like, okay, well, I get that. I understand that. And then there were some things that I didn't get. So some things you're just going to have to sit with for a little while and study it. Ask yourself questions, asking who wrote it, asking what the context is. Like, okay, is this part of biblical history, or is this something that's descriptive or prescriptive? You got to ask yourself questions. And then it's okay to ask God questions. You're not questioning God, because I would ask him questions all the time. And lo and behold, as I kept studying, I would get answers to some of the things that I would read. And I know that a lot of people think that the Bible is just not relevant to their life and what they're going. It is real. It was written so long ago, but some of the things in here, not some, but all of the things in here are still relevant to the things that we're experiencing in life right now. And one of the things that just comes to mind right now is like friendships. Right before I got on here for Bible study, y'all, I was watching the news, and there's this lady, and I don't know if you guys may have heard of this story. She befriended this lady. She was her friend for about a whole year. And so the mom's like, okay, we've been friends for a whole year. I'm going to let her babysit the kids and watch my kids. And the girl ended up kidnapping her children. She took both of her children, but both the children have been found. They're safe and sound. But yes, the mom said they had been friends for a whole year. So a whole year, this lady pretended to be her friend only so she could steal her kids. And I'm saying she did that because now it's coming out that she had kidnapped somebody else's, I think, 4-day-old baby or something. So you really do have to be careful. You guys, you really have to be careful. The Bible is relevant. And so I've talked about this before, that people will disguise themselves. They will disguise themselves. The Bible talks about this. It's in 2 Corinthians. I can't remember. I've talked about it before. Like, you really have to, you need discernment, and you need to be looking for fruit. Those are the two things. If you don't see fruit, because sometimes people can pretend, but I feel like I feel like people can only pretend for so long. So you need to have discernment. And if you don't have discernment, you need to ask God for it. You need to be discerning people. Because that girl, for a whole year, she pretended. A whole year. And think about it. I'm not even putting any blame on the mom, because I would think after a whole year, I'd be like, okay. And especially if she had not shown her anything, she'd be like, okay, if she's a single mom. And she was like, okay, I need somebody to watch my kids while I go to work, or I, want to just enjoy myself or go out or something. She volunteered to watch the kids, and y'all supposed to be friends. You probably would do that. So I'm not judging her, the mom, at all. But I'm just saying, like, people out here, it's getting real. It's getting worse, y'all. So you gotta, and I did a video on this. Like, you gotta check the fruit every season. You gotta check it every season. I don't care how nice and kind and whatever you think they are. You gotta be evaluating people all the time. Because just because they love you in this season don't mean they're going to love you in the next one. Thank you, Maisha, in capital letters. She said every season, y'all. Yes, every season. Every season. And if your gut is telling you something about somebody, just be like, okay, all right, okay, I'm looking, I'm watching. Because sometimes you may get a feeling, and sometimes your discernment doesn't always have to be about something bad either. I just want to say that sometimes your discernment can tell you, okay, this person is okay. You know what I'm saying? But if you keep feeling something about someone, just know that that person may not be somebody you can consider a friend, but they could be an associate. You can put them in the associate category, not the friend category, but the associate. And so when you put people in the associate category, they can stay right there, because friends are somebody you feel like you can trust, you can be transparent with, all of those things. You shouldn't be ashamed or embarrassed, or you shouldn't have to pretend to be something that you're not with your true friends, authentic friends. God didn't create us to be alone. We need people, but we need the right ones. And remember, when Jesus went out on the mount, I can't think of what the name of it is. He only took 3 people with him. He had 12 disciples, but he only took 3, y'all. He only took James, was it James, Peter, and John? I forget, but he only took 3. He only took 3 of them. Why? Yes, Mount Sinai. When he went up there, he only took 3 people. That's why I said it's so good to pay attention to the small details in the Bible. Sometimes it's not going to be something that like really jumps out at you. And like I said, God reveals. It's like he'll reveal something. You can read the same chapter. I don't care how many times you read it. You're going to see something new every time. God is going to reveal something to you. So just like I said, sometimes it's just going to be some things you just have to sit with it. Like sit with it for a while. Don't be in a rush to get through the Bible. Let the Bible get through to you. Let it get through to you. That's what it's about, y'all. It's not about knowing every verse and quoting every verse, because it don't mean nothing if you can quote it but you're not living it. And I have to tell myself, and that's one thing that keeps me in check too. Like, God don't care about us quoting the Bible. What matters is that we live it. We live by the principles. And he's telling us, if you live my way, if you live, and again, this takes some time. And God knows that. That's why he gives us time. Yes. Not hearers, but doers. That's in James 1:22, I think. James 1:22, one of them. It's somewhere in there, in James. Also in Philippians, it tells us to put it into practice. Philippians 4 verse 8. I think it's 4. It's either verse 4 or 9. Verse 8 or 9, I mean. Y'all, I have menopause, and so I have the most terrible brain fog. But I'm working on it. It's getting better. It's getting better. But all right, y'all. Unless anybody has any questions, we'll be right back here next week with Genesis chapter 30. And like I said, it gets better and better. And we're going to talk about jealousy again. Jealousy is coming up again. This word, it doesn't actually say it, but we know from what we're reading that jealousy is never a good thing. It's not. So yeah. All right, y'all. I think another word for it is coveting. Coveting, yes, coveting. And then also, before we get started, next week, I want to go over 3 things, because I just told you all to ask yourself some questions while you're studying the Bible, so that you don't get overwhelmed. So if you start asking yourself these questions and you have this like framework to like, okay, what's the context, what's the genre, or what's like, and ask these questions. And when you start asking these questions, because sometimes when we're reading it, because I've read it, you have to ask yourself, okay, who is this person, the author, talking to? Because it's not written to us, it's written for us. And what was going on at that time? Why is he saying what he's saying? Why is he addressing what he's addressing? And also, if you know, oh, I'm in the book of Proverbs, I'm in the book of Psalms, I'm in the book of Job, that's considered wisdom literature. And then the Gospels, which are, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Those are all the Gospels. Yes, that's right. He's well pleased. So yeah, but I'm currently in the book of John in my studies right now. That's where I am. So I've just kind of been reading that, and I've found a lot of things that I had not seen. I've read it several times, but I'm reading it again and I see new things. And I'm going to share them with y'all. So I got a couple of videos that are coming up too. But yeah, but that's it for this week's Bible study. I thank each and every one of you for joining. I pray that you all have a good rest of your week, and I will see you all next week at the same time, only on YouTube. I think I haven't made my mind up, but I may go live on YouTube at 5 and then live on TikTok at 6, because sometimes it gets kind of a little bit trying to talk to both angles. So yeah, so maybe next week on YouTube I may be doing at 5 p.m. and then on TikTok at 6, or vice versa. I don't know, however it goes. But all right, y'all have a good rest of your week and a good rest of your evening. Okay, I'll see y'all next week. Good night.